Ramadan Kareem, everyone. We are in the holy month of Ramadan. Our guest for today's session, Dr. Summia Naz, founder and the CEO of Al-Asad Therapy.
This is not your regular podcast.
I can only describe my journey as climbing Mount Everest, going through the Sahara Desert, surviving a tsunami. So I've gone through so much.
So not only you empowered yourself, your family, but you started creating the positive change in your ecosystem. This is something that we talk extensively in this podcast. Welcome to From Hero to Human, your safe space where we normalize conversations about mental health for healthcare professionals and beyond. Your not judgmental environment where we offer choice and awareness instead of issuing prescriptions.
This is not your regular podcast. From Hero to Human is daring, it's bold, it focuses on the human being, which means the experts that we bring are from all walks of life with amazing, strong expertise on healing, mental health, well-being, wellness. We also talk about the mind, the body, and soul. Welcome to our podcast.
Beautiful. Thank you, Nina. So, Ramadan Kareem, everyone. We are in the holy month of Ramadan. And I have an immense pleasure and honor to introduce our guest for today's session. So, Dr. Summia Naz, welcome. She is the founder and the CEO of Al-Asad Therapy, a global platform dedicated to empowering individuals through holistic well-being, CBT, and she's also a health coach. With over 25 years of expertise, she specializes in cancer remission support, mental health, corporate well-being, gut health, family-related problems, and lots more. With the PhD in antibiotics from the UK, certifications in nutrition, counseling, and CBT, Dr. Summia merges the science, research, and coaching to transform lives. And this is something that deeply resonates with me, both the science, the coaching, and the spiritual component. So this is what you do. But the first question for you is, who are you as a human?
First of all, I want to say thank you, Magda and Nina, for inviting me today. So who am I as a human? First and foremost, I would like to think that I'm a believer, somebody who worships Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and I was put on this earth to worship Him and follow His commands. And within that realm comes, how am I as a mother? How do I treat myself? My body's an amana, which is a trust. And how am I as a daughter? What role do I have in the community? What role do I have with my kids as a wife? And how wholesome can my life be? Because if my life is wholesome, then I can be a better version of myself. And I believe that for me, my ultimate goal is for excellence in the deen and the dunya, in this life and the hereafter. And to achieve that, it's not easy, and it's not going to be easy. Yeah.
It's beautiful to have you here in this holy month of Ramadan, and I am so grateful because me and Magda, we always talk about how the guests that we have in our podcast and in our platform, it's like we attract them. We attract them because the energy that we're putting out is very pure and the intention is very pure. Therefore, we bring people like you into our lives. And I read so much about what you've done, and I congratulate you because you have moved from one industry to another within the healthcare, whether it's pharmaceuticals, where it's the therapy, whether it's the research that you have done. And with that vast knowledge that you have gained, you have to share everything today as much as you can
Inshallah.
with the
Inshallah,
time that we
definitely.
have.
Yeah.
Starting with Al-Asl therapy. I am so fascinated to understand about this. Where did it come from and what it's all about and how our audience can actually probably benefit from it.
Okay. So Al-Asl therapy, it was developed over, I would say, 8 years, but it's bringing together 25 years of experience. And Al-Asl in Arabic is looking at the origin and the root. So it actually started with my children. They were born healthy in Epsom Hospital in the UK, and breastfed exclusively for 14 months, both of them. There's almost 2 years apart. And we were here in the UK, and my youngest was 6 weeks old, and they were getting sick often after a certain period of time. My eldest developed severe ENT issues, constantly swollen tonsils, adenoids, not eating well. The youngest, at some point, he developed chronic eczema. And we would go from doctor to doctor, and we actually saw some of the best dermatologists in Dubai. We went to London Harley Street. My eldest had an operation at Portland Hospital. I saw some doctors in the north of the UK. We even saw a doctor in Switzerland.
Wow.
And my youngest was taken 3 months out of nursery, 3 months out of school every year. And my eldest, he developed, after having his partial tonsillectomy, he developed an eye condition. Now, I always understood about science and medicine from a very young age. I even have a letter from Dr. Miller, which I shared. And basically, he was saying that I could see, how medicine can be much more. And so with my children, I was thinking, okay, it's getting worse and worse and worse, month by month by month. And I remember even the doctor at one of the hospitals is like, I've never met a mother like you before. But I was at the point where I was like, I'm okay with that. And then eventually, and I'm not anti-pharma at all, I do believe there's a place for medicine and prescriptions. But I remember turning around one day after going through all of this, I remember, and spending a lot of money as well. I told my husband, I said, I'm going to stop everything. And I'm not advising people to do this. I'm saying this is where Al-Asl therapy started from. And with my children, I decided that I'm going to stop everything. Because I used to work with many therapeutic areas within the pharmaceutical industry, and I used to work with the actual packaging, so I was very much aware of going back and reading what the side effects are. So before I knew it, we saw a naturopath, and that's where I started a lot of research. We changed their school, we changed accommodation, we went to a more greener area, and I know not everybody can do that, but we had to make the necessary changes, and I started to spend a lot more time outside with the boys. Alhamdulillah. It's been 8, nearly 9 years now, which is the time Al-Asl therapy started. And we, alhamdulillah, rarely go to the doctors now. From going every single month, every single week. So that is true testament to so that's where it started. So people came to know about my children because they were in school at that point. So I started to help people. I set up WhatsApp groups, and I told them it's an informed choice. You make the choice, and then I started thinking, okay, there's no accountability, and my brain was already primed before my children, being academic field, being PhD field, working at university. So I decided I need to start putting a program together. So whilst I was still taking care of the kids, I started doing more tutoring, helping people with their academics, but also had this health group that I had set up. And so then basically over the last 8 years, I've kept, and it wasn't called Al-Asl therapy, it didn't really technically have a name, it's just wellness programs, and then it was health and counselling therapy. And then it was only last year, where a couple of years ago, I decided, right, it needs a name. And I said, okay, I don't want to mislead people and, tell them that, okay, there's a cure here. But it's just looking at the origin and the root. So, for example, there's a really good example that I had. I had 2 ladies who were pregnant. Imagine this, 2 ladies who were pregnant. They had both ended up with COVID. They were both hospitalized, and they came to me at the same time. And I made them aware. They had given birth by then. And they came with the similar symptoms. And I made them aware, have you seen a doctor? Have you done your tests? You know that I work under the banner of coaching. They said, yeah. So what happened was, we obviously had to work on well-being. They needed a space where they had someone to talk to. They had given birth, the whole postpartum. So we looked at nutrition. But in the end, what we realized, because when the virus attacks or if they're going through some medical type of trauma, what we found was with one of the ladies, let's say Lady B, she had a history of intolerances. So those intolerances had come back because a lot of people who have dealt with COVID have ended up having gut health problems. So we were starting to deal with the gut health again. So that was a lot more simple. So we did elimination diet. But the other lady, it uprooted her childhood traumas. And then we had to start thinking about family therapy because it was too overbearing. But in the long term, what happened was with the Lady A, it was a lot more extensive, what the work we had to do because of the traumas being uprooted. And that was exacerbating like her condition, panic attacks, palpitations. But anyway, both of them got to some sort of health again. And so that's like looking at the root. We had to go back to the root. We had to understand. And they both came at the same time. So there's a lot to go into it.
It's fascinating.
A beautiful story, and thank you for sharing. Someone who used her own struggles, perhaps even pain, that was turned into empowerment phase. So not only you empowered yourself, your family, but you started creating the positive change in your ecosystem. This is something that we talk extensively in this podcast. It's all about creating a positive change and really using your voice, looking at the narrative that was created for you, or you created this narrative yourself. And where I'm going with this, you were able to use curiosity to find the right answers by asking the right questions. We see now in the world, people are overwhelmed with information and stop for wisdom. So how do we start when, for example, I am that individual who is really stuck? I don't feel well. I think my level of stress are really high. I am transmitting this energy to my environment. So imagine I'm a leader. Everyone else around me is also stressed because the leader is stressed. Where do I start? How do I move from this space of overwhelm to the space of clarity and finding the right support?
If you was to come to me, let's say, for example, the first thing I would do is just have an initial talk with you. Everything I do is very systematic and methodical because I have to remind the audience and I have gone through, I can only describe my journey as climbing Mount Everest, going through the Sahara Desert, surviving a tsunami. So I've gone through so much. So when I have a client, I have this very systematic, methodical, very,
structured,
precise. So if you was to come to me, it'd be first to listen, understand, and analyze. And even if you have knowledge, I believe you have to have insight. And I thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that I didn't know what journey I had been on, but I thank Him that I have that now. And so if I was to have you, I would be coming with that behind me, just to reassure you. So and I'm so happy I can share that now. So if you was to come to me, I would analyze what you say. And as you're speaking, I'm analyzing, but in a very neutral way. And especially if it's related to family and if it's related to marital, especially within the GCC and the UAE, we have to be very careful when it comes to these So, and then there's a form that you fill out. And this form has been carefully designed because it's part of a review. So I know that when they fill that out, that's kind of the benchmark. Are they at that place or have they improved? So I look at predisposing factors and what's currently going on. So the predisposing factors, what's happening with you, what's happened with you. So I would let you, it's called a release process.
Oh.
We release. And then, because you have to release from the trauma.
Yeah.
You have to release from what you're going through, because it's all, people come to me because it's bubbled up. They've been to doctors, they've had the tests. They're like, okay, let's just see what Dr. Naz has to say. So, yeah. And then we start to slowly deconstruct. And part of the CBT training that I've had is where we have the homework or something to take away. So the programs are carefully designed where it's not like you come for the session and that's it. There's some habit forming changes that we slowly, and because everything that I do is evidence-based, it naturally falls in place for the client. They will be like, because they've discussed that, the solutions and understanding. And for some clients, it's, for example, I had one lady from Saudi Arabia, and she rang me, she contacted me on Instagram, and she was like, I need to contact. I was thinking, first thing that comes to my mind in these cases, if it's clinical, I cannot deal with it. Like high-level clinical, they have to go to a psychiatrist. Is it going to be within my realm? So we had the initial session, and one of the things that I go back to is, have you had your blood tests? So for example, if it was you and you was in that position, she was frantic. And I said, okay, look, if you have vitamin D deficiency, because believe me, it's really difficult for people to understand a simple blood test, because they're thinking it's something magnified in their brain. I said, if you have vitamin D deficiency, it's going to impact your hormones, it's going to impact your mental health, and and we need a good amount of vitamin D for the uptake of calcium. So it's all interlinked. Throw in iron deficiency, which is common in women.
Yeah.
Throw in iron that is like a volcanic explosion.
Wow.
And women don't realize, and it affects your cognitive function. So just an example, I said, go have it done. She had it done, and she came back with both deficiencies.
Wow.
Within 1 week, she told me during the session, she said, I was in the car, I felt claustrophobic, I felt panicked, and I wanted to open the car door. So me thinking, oh my God, let's just get her to get her blood test done, and I do have a liability waiver as well. So I was thinking, okay, if she has those deficiencies, then they, as a family, can make an informed decision. So she had those, and within a week, she was starting to feel better. She didn't feel that level of panic. So going back to your question, I know I've talked around it, is predisposing factors. Something so simple as really addressing a blood test and looking at what's in their childhood. But it's not, I do Socratic questioning, which is part of CBT, but I listen and see. And as the years have gone by, it's like you say something to me and I'll be like, alarm bells ringing. Ring, 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 ring. But I know I cannot give you the A to Z of your solution. It's a process. So I take you through a process. Yeah.
I love that. That was packed with so many keywords. Habits, released, the human being, the going back to basics.
Yep.
As simple as it sounds, if you go to the core, as you said, al-asl, the origin, you'll be able to decipher a lot of problems in there, and you'll be able to take it all out and to support. Dr. Naz, I was reading about faith healing, okay? And one of the articles was talking about a study that was done in the Philippines way back when, before Hispanic invasion and so on. And these healers, mostly women, by the way, they use herbs and natural ingredients to create cures. And their focus was to have integration of the body and the soul and create that sense of healing. And most of the outcomes that they saw in the people that they treated was the release you talked about, was the feeling of lightness, was the feeling of like warmth. And they described it in different ways and in different manners. I want you to tell us more about this type of healing and whether we can actually incorporate it in our modern life.
Yeah. So this is a topic that's very close to my heart, very close. Like, first and foremost, there's different types of healing out there. And in today's society, I mean, I want this to be quite raw and open, but because I'm going to give you some information that it's really core.
Yeah.
There are certain types of, for example, let's talk about the UAE and GCC since we're in this region. There's certain types of healing remedies that are not part of Islamic faith. And I'll tell you why I feel so strongly about this. I've had not one, quite a few women come to me saying they've been to energy healers where they've done certain therapeutic healing and they've had out-of-body experiences. And I remember one lady, she was with me, and I like to tell stories. That's fine.
Beautiful.
Because it puts things into perspective
100%.
and why I have reached to where I have. So with this lady, I was doing her sister's coaching. She says, look, my sister's seen somebody and she can't sleep and she feels like she's having hallucinations at night. So what happened was I said, okay, I can try. Because I always try, and I don't put people on long programs. When it's something unknown or something that could potentially be severe, it's like step-by-step incremental improvement. So with this lady, she had seen somebody and they were doing type of energy healing, which for me, some of these energy healings where you're touching part of the body but you're not, or like even hypnotherapy, even these types of therapies, it's not really in line with the authentic way of doing the therapies. So she was having hallucinations, feeling like somebody's attacking her. And I said, okay, so because we in the Islamic faith, we believe in the unseen. And this is in all the Abrahamic religions. And we believe in the unseen. So subhanallah, the first thing is, we have protection, du'as for protection. Surah Ikhlas, Surah Naz, Surah Falaq, Ayatul Kursi, very powerful. So Allah, we are taught that it's like, imagine you're going to a battlefield and you don't have a weapon. But when you read the du'as and you read the prayers, it's like you have the shield with you, protecting you from what you can see and what you cannot see.
That's true.
So with this lady, we just do simple changes, like how do you protect yourself, calming her down, letting her release how she feels. Not just from the faith-based element, we also, for example, magnesium, because you can have something affect you that you cannot see, for example, but it will affect your stomach. So using magnesium oil and just preventative ways, and then monitoring her. Is she improving 0.5%? Is she improving? Because I have a safeguarding policy with myself. Is there incremental improvement? So coming back to the faith-based aspect, there's multiple areas and it's extremely important. And I believe there's a huge cognitive shift. If, for example, you're a Muslim, and that is optional. You can have faith-based coaching, or it's up to you. It's not something that should be enforced on anybody. So, for example, there is the du'as, is the self-ruqya, highly recommended, the verses of the Quran to protect. And also, for example, Ibn Qayyim rahimahullah, he was a medieval doctor. He was also a person of knowledge. You see, I class myself as someone who's a basic knowledge person. But he said part of the curious habit in the Prophetic medicine book. And as we know, when I tell my clients this, the reason why I want you to do these things, or I want you to do homework, or I want you to send me your wins every single day, I know that they're habit forming. If I'm there in 3 weeks to 1 month, they will have formed a habit. And as we know, putting faith and science together, the core, the root, not anything in other places and realms. It's like the root. New neural connections are formed in the brain. And not only that, your brain chemistry changes when you are forming the habit. And because we are overloaded with social media, overloaded. I have doctors who I work with, medical doctors. I put a ban on social media for them.
Absolutely.
So incorporating faith, it's in multiple ways. Like I've said, brain chemistry, brain training, going back to basics. Why was we created? What is your priority list? And I have a favorite dua that I give my clients who suffer from overwhelm. اللهم رحمتك أرجو فلا تكلني إلى نفسي طرفة عين واصلح لي شأني كله لا إله إلا أنت. We're telling Allah, Allah, don't leave me to myself even for the blinking of an eye, and correct all of my affairs for me. So
Beautiful.
I find it so profound because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He knows that we are imperfect and we self-destruct. So faith is integrated in so many different ways. Let's talk about nutrition. We are advocated to eat tayyib food. We have been told by the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, 1/3, 1 part water, 1 part food, 1 part air. Okay, so even how to eat and even the food we eat nowadays, we call it clean eating. So I tell my kids, if there's 20 ingredients on the bread, leave it. Look for 3 or 4. Okay, in the corporate world, sometimes when I tell them, and this is not even this information is not even just for Muslims, it's for non-Muslims. So I said, for example, when I go to the corporate ladies, I'm like, who's drinking Miranda? Who's drinking Mountain Dew? They're like, we. I said, okay, you want the lesser evil? Go for something like Sprite or something like this, because they have colorings in that can cause an immediate allergic reaction or some sort of reflux, and it actually says it on the bottle. So I know I've gone around, but faith is what you eat. Faith is how you live. Faith is understanding that we are not created perfect, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows that. And it's living with hope, and it's living with guidance that He's given us the Sirat al-Mustaqim. He's given us not the right and left, He's given us the straight path and what we need to do and how we need to function and how we need to move forward as well.
Spectacular.
So much richness in this information that you have just shared. And we have spoken before in preparation for this podcast. I have gained so much of a new awareness about faith-based interventions, about prophetic medicine. And we started receiving a lot of feedback, Nina, for this space that we are creating here, that we are culturally intelligent. Again, with this type of feedback comes responsibility.
100%.
And when you started sharing with me the prophetic medicine principles, I turned back to the time when I used to work in Kuwait, and my Muslim nurses started sharing with me a particular type of feedback. I was going with them coaching for the purpose of increasing their emotional intelligence and mental agility. And one sister said to me, Ma'am Magda, the coaching you're doing with us, we are able to accept because the Holy Book is also talking about how to navigate emotions, how to navigate anger. It's not to suppress it, it's to become aware of it, seeing what is the message behind this anger, and then learning from that situation. So again, how do we become culturally sensitive? How do we access the right type of information? Because in this podcast, we talk about a lot about mental health, about well-being, and what you have just said, there isn't a one prescription for everyone. There isn't a blanket approach for everyone. Every single individual comes with a package, a basket of tools, upbringing. And again, we are holistic human beings. So it is the mind, body, spirit. How do we incorporate the spirit part into the coaching or CBT intervention with our clients? So having this kind of awareness is, for me, this is life-changing because I have already stepped up on another level, and this has given me so much more, not only awareness, but curiosity to keep exploring more. How do I need to show up as a coach, mentor, facilitator for my clients, for leaders, for teams in organizations, to make sure that the approach and the transformation that is going to happen along the way is unique to them.
So are you asking for, if you were in a setting where it's mainly, for example, GCC women, so first and foremost, there has to be a decompression of the central nervous system. There has to be calm. Like, let's just slow down. Before I would say let them have access to knowledge. Because within the GCC and within the UAE, like, the family is a very, important aspect. And I really want to bring that sense of family into the work that I do, because whilst I also do corporate workshops, I do believe that is, when we talk about the year of community, that is the soul and the next generation and for generations to come. So the first thing would be, let's all just calm, decompress, calm the central nervous system, okay? And let's go back, if I was going to be working with, let's say, Muslim women from different backgrounds, would calm it down and then take them back to some basics, breathing, posture. How do we straighten our posture? Because it can cause gut dysbiosis as well. So I'm not just, and then I would also link faith, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created us with a spine. As women, we curl up, we cross. Yeah. I've noticed when I do my corporate workshops, I'm actually looking at how they're sitting, and we do curl up. And as much as people look at maybe my credentials or what I've done, I want to remind them the most important job is first at home and organizing the next generation as well. So bringing them back down to a human level, which is essentially your podcast. So, and then teaching them, like, okay, what can you do? Because they have to lead themselves. Are you neglecting some of the basic principles? First, obviously, they have to keep their heart and tongue wet with adhkar. And they are not, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, for example, even, I support my children with their GCSEs, for example. I tell them, look, we obviously want you to get good grades, but the end grade is what counts. So you've worked 5 years, if not more, for that. But with your religion, every step you do, innamal a'malu binniyat, the intention, you are rewarded.
Yes.
So when you wake up, you read your morning dua, you read your morning adhkar. Breathe. Mental tick. Okay, when you wake up, you cannot just go to coffee. So I will start to integrate the nutrition. Coffee for men, wow. No one talks about what coffee does to women. Depletes B vitamins. And women who are going through perimenopause, they already have palpitations. Women who have low iron. I never see a man who has I've never come across a man who has low iron. But women have low iron and susceptible. So the coffee and the tea, let's try to replace it with something else sometimes. So then again, connect that to what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants from you. Tayyib, food, which is clean food, good food. And He loves us to think with a high level of ihsan, excellence. Wow. And I always tell my clients, write the word perfect, cross it out, write the word excellence. So it's like taking them through, if I was to do it, it's taking them through a very holistic but very methodical steps. So from the moment you wake up, you're ticking boxes. And I think that's so important, because the culture in social media is you're not doing enough and you need to go do your 10K steps. But hold on, before I've thought about my 10K steps, I've ticked these boxes that are going to help me in this life and the life after. So their days start to become more meaningful. And then as we move away from that, obviously when it comes to the home, okay, how can we organize the home? How can you have a village? I don't think there's enough conversations about women having a village around them. I think you need a village. You need that support system, and you shouldn't be shy. I don't believe staying in that phase of I can do everything, and I've been there. I'm going to be honest. I've been there. I've been there, and
that's why we are here with this podcast.
I've been there where I felt I could do everything, and you know, I was telling Magda earlier, I felt Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told me, Summia, you are strong, but your body cannot do everything you're doing. And I was taught a big lesson when I hit my 40s, and it was hard for me. So going back to the workplace, so as you're going through, so if I was to work with the nurses, for example, how can we help and support you in your home environment? Now, from this, there's going to be certain things that will have intervention. We're talking about frontline workers at the top, in the school system, in the corporate system, in the healthcare system. We've got amazing ideas. But how does that filter down? And my son, who was failed by the schooling system, you know, the schooling system never understood him. They wanted to crush him. So I see the same thing sometimes in the corporate field. Amazing ideas, lots of money spent, but does it filter down to the frontline workers?
To the right people.
So having an open discussion about home, especially if it's women and even men, because it's not just women who sometimes in difficult marriages. Some men have got wives who have gone through, because these are real life cases. You can have women who are in traumatic marriages, and you can have men who have married somebody who she saw her mom going through a lot. So she is like in fight and flight mode all through her marriage. And then she doesn't know how to interact with her husband because she's still stuck in her traumas. So I would have, that's another part. And then I know I'm going to be eventually leading them, and then maybe the corporation or the hospital, there needs to be a helpline that is set up to slowly help them, to transition them. And because I've seen the beginning and I've seen the end of how I have supported women in their homes, and I've worked with doctors as well, so I've started right at the basics. But what do we see on social media? 10k steps. Get your 10k steps in before 4 o'clock. 4 o'clock in the morning, wake up, have your coffee, get your 10k steps in. But there's so much more richness that you can have in your morning. And then once we deal with that, they feel a sense of, okay. And then we move on to how we operate in the workplace. And the level of competence and excellence and ethics and morals, and we start to go into corporate EQ, emotional intelligence, which is very important for me. And so if I was to help, I would start and take them along a journey, and then I would do a poll and see what's come up from that. And it's very client driven, and that's where Al-Asal therapy comes in. Because I can, with all the modalities, integrate whatever I need to based on the need.
Wow, I am speechless just for a bit because I'm processing the beauty, the value, and the essence that you're bringing in, Doc. Sure. It's amazing. What you've described is wellness. Wellness is the pursuit of active lifestyles, activities, choices that you make to lead in optimal wellness and well-being and better mental health. And you spoke about the community and about having the support that you need as a human being, because we are social beings and we are not meant to be alone. And what we see now is the epidemic of loneliness, and there we see how people are suffering of being alone, and this predisposes them to a lot of diseases, because once this is not well, everything else, and same with the physical portion of the body. And wow, I have a question.
Yeah, sure.
this is huge what you're doing. And I'm sure there are challenges that have come your way that have created a thought in your head that, how do I deal with this? What's my next step? How do I come up with something that will be beneficial for all, that I can actually use and give out there? So what are some of those challenges, and how have you overcome them?
The biggest challenge, the absolutely biggest challenge for me was, how do I collate my knowledge and bring something out there? And I don't want to say I'm a brave person, because I don't believe putting myself up there, but it's taken a lot of bravery, it's taken a lot of courage, it's taken hard work. I've done my istikhara, I've consulted Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, I've said to him, Ya Allah, you gave me this knowledge. Yes, I worked for it. I said, Ya Allah, you gave me this knowledge. You've given me these opportunities. You've seen how hard, like, the hard work that has gone into this, I cannot comprehend. I cannot explain. You know, looking after my kids, dealing with them. You know, at the same time, I was helping somebody. Somebody had approached me. They know I do academics. It's they had a failed DBA proposal. So I've been doing scattered work prior to coming to these last 2 years. So the hardest part for me was saying, how do I get that out there? Because, I mean, to be honest, in UAE, you need licensing, you need DHA, you need all sorts. So I said, okay, I'll work under the banner of as a coach, because that's what I want to do. But having the bravery to put this out there, and I knew that I could help people. I knew I could get to the source of a lot of problems, because for me, the hardest thing, it was putting myself out there. I wasn't originally a businesswoman. I was very institutionalized and very happy to work for companies. I've done lots of pro bono work. I've done lots of work with companies, institutions. So my personal journey might be different to other people. But for me, it was very hard to say, look, here I am. This is what I do. These are the results. Because, and just something so simple, like somebody thought she had cancer and she was having a gut issue. But 3 weeks on an elimination diet, sending her to Unilabs for her intolerance test. 3 weeks, all of her gut symptoms had gone, but she didn't have stress, so it was easier to manage that. So I know that I'm getting these case studies. Again, somebody with non-Hodgkin's lymphoma in remission from cancer, swollen lymph nodes, doctors pushing antibiotics. I'm like, I can't get involved with what the doctor says. That's out of my realm. But what I can do is I can support you. So within 1 month, all of her lymph nodes cleared. Why? Because she was only eating outside food. Only. But she didn't have traumas and she didn't have stress. So usually it's a little bit easier to heal when you don't have the trauma and stress. But anyway, the challenges have been just actually putting myself out there and putting my work out there, and staying firm in that this means something. And it's been a very lonely and painful journey to actually get to the point I have. I don't want to glamorize what I've done at all. There's no glamour in it. It's just pure hard work. And imagine, like, you have a client and you know that you have this knowledge, and doing the integrative aspect, knowing that they come with something and they leave with, alhamdulillah, 30-40, because I always say you're never going to be 100%. So 30-40% improvement. Like, even, last month, a teen girl from London, she contacted me, her mother, and she's having these very scary thoughts. But again, because of experience, we even looked at the books she was reading, because there's some books that lots of parents, and so through the program we build awareness. The books that the child starts reading 4 years prior, it's not part of, again, it was a young Muslim girl, it's not part of the belief system that they grow up on. So like some of the interactions that the books are producing. But she was actually vitamin D deficient. It was also possibly the book she was reading. And she was awake the whole night crying, and she didn't know why. So I did CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy, understanding about thoughts, and we don't need to give in to our thoughts, and everybody has thoughts. We talked about hormone dysregulation and what it means, and what interventions you need to put into place, and helping her with her studies and being more organized. So the hardest part has been is I know deep down it works, but I was just waiting for that breakthrough after all these years to say, look, I have these programs, I look into family systems, I look into the child, I look into what's the environment. So I think it's been, the hardest part has been sticking to it.
Yeah.
And, you know, and I think, you know, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He paved this way for me. And it's just, you know, actually saying, this is a valid approach, this integrative approach is extremely valid, and then building my case studies, and actually people believing that this is a concept, this is something that can work. And it was scary and painful because you don't know where it's going to lead you to. You really do not know where it's going to lead you to. But alhamdulillah, we are here now, and that was the most, I think the loneliness of going through developing al-asal therapy it's been the hardest thing for me, and it being something established, because I did want something established.
I feel immense courage, but also it takes a great level of vulnerability to put yourself out there, to stand for what you believe in, to understand the sides, the messages that you were receiving, that this is the right path. I was able to heal myself, support my family, and now it's time to support the community. And we are in the year of community, 2025, here in the UAE, right? Yeah, I think your message is even more powerful. And I really appreciate what you have explained and making it easy to digest. The science component on one side, and then the not conventional interventions, let's say, the faith-based interventions, prophetic medicine. How do we approach someone who is deeply religious? And it doesn't matter with religion, because it can be Christianity, it can be Judaism. So how do we become almost a vessel? You have mentioned a vessel before, right? We are the vessels through which other people can also heal themselves. So we have all these resources inside. I come with the meta-agility framework. Gina also has her own rest framework. And you are breaking the beautiful scientific as the holistic. All in one place. So I'm really grateful that you have joined this discussion here. It's a very different type of discussion. And we come with open hearts. That's why we attracted a person who also comes with an open heart and wants to share with us the work of the past 25 years. I mean, you have put an immense amount of work, dedication, heart, soul, everything is about. It means a lot. Everything is, you can feel it. The way you describe it, I have goosebumps through all this conversation because of the energy, because of the mission that you are on, because of the intentionality. And we very often talk here in this podcast about intentionality. We need to first show up for the why, and then the how will introduce itself. So the why came from a whole. And I think a last question for me will be, we are now in the holy month of Ramadan. It is also a period of perhaps developing a new habit. A habit that will stick with us, not only for the 30 days, but that will improve. And it will move us into a healthier space in the future, more enjoyable environments. And with this habit, we can perhaps produce the positive change that we are talking about for our community. What would be one thing that you can share with our viewers, or something that you have seen working on a personal level, or perhaps your...
I just want generally...
Or just people of the Muslim faith? Are you talking generally?
Let's talk about the Muslim faith.
If there's one thing I can tell, so I have a lot of women who come to me, and families, especially women, where they feel guilty. They feel guilty because they have a career, and they have children. So I like to go back to basics. I don't like to say the common thing. Okay, your nutrition. Let's go to the fundamentals. So a lot of women feel guilty, and they find that they do carve more time out for their religious. And I just had a client at the moment, she's got multiple, she's got pre-diabetic, she's got thyroid, she's got multiple things, but she's actually found that carving out more time to just sit with the Quran. Okay, so if there's one advice that I could give is that breathe and just slow down, because we're racing, and life is a race because we want to be successful in this world and in the hereafter as Muslims. But slow down, and every single step of your day, focus on innamal a'malu binniyat. You are rewarded for your intention. And actually, slowly, incrementally, systematically, okay, let's say I walk to the car. I can be reading adhkar, astaghfar, alhamdulillah. So try to mindfully implement remembering Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in every single thing that you do. Not only are you rewarded, it calms the central nervous system down. When you're mindful of what you're doing and connecting that to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, mindfulness increases gratitude and gratefulness, and as you know, it increases dopamine.
Yes.
So we're talking about a whole prescription here.
Yeah.
A whole prescription. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He is not limited to His mercy.
Yeah.
And a lot of women feel guilty thinking they're not under like God's protection, or He's not there for them. But there's no limit, and He doesn't like us to judge Him in that way. He is merciful, Ar-Rahman, and He's the most giving. So in every single thing that you're doing, whether you're looking after your children, you're raising the next generation, which, believe me, 20 PhDs will never equate to raising children.
Yes.
It's the most hardest job in the world.
Tell me about it.
So when you're preparing the food, get some help if you need, but prepare it with intention.
Yeah.
So if I could say, correct your intention and be mindful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Beautiful,
Okay.
beautiful. Dr. Naz, it resonates, and I vouch for it because I put myself in that situation where I become very mindful. So just an example, just to promote a lot of what you're saying, because I'm applying a lot of it.
Yeah.
The deep breathing is so real, because once I do that, my whole body calms down, because my work is super stressful. I have to be on my toes every time, and my mind has to be super sharp. Other than that, I'm a mom. So as a mom, I start my day with my son. And my son, mashallah, he is all over the place. And I cannot contain that energy. I need to flow with it. And to flow with it, I need to find ways to center me, to calm me down. So the adhkar, so true. Like, I start with the adhkar, and I help him with the adhkar as well. And that helps me to calm down. When I get to work, I have my tasabih, and I do my rounds with my tasabih. And people are asking me, what's this? I'm like, mindfulness before I kill someone today. And it works, subhanAllah. And I have tried to incorporate my prayers in my office. During my busy day, I schedule that, and I try my best not to miss it. And if I do, I try to do it afterwards. So 3 basic things: the adhkar that you've mentioned, being mindful, deep breathing, they truly work, guys.
Yeah.
They truly work.
And of course, the nutrition also, and
Absolutely.
hydration.
Absolutely.
Nutrition and hydration.
Absolutely.
It's all interlinked, because if you're mindful of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you will start to check your whole life.
Yeah.
But it's something we have to revise every single day. We are forgetful. It's something we have to revise every single day. But even revising that every single day, there's a reward in it. For some people, for some women who will listen to this, it'll be hard for them.
Yeah.
But if your path is harder, then how do you know that your status is not being elevated even more, and you're not getting more rewards for that?
That's very true.
Yeah.
That's very true.
Alhamdulillah.
Thank you so much for being
No,
here today.
thank you
It's
so much to you
amazing.
too.
Thank you. Well, and gratefulness at the end of this episode. So anyone who is listening, if you resonate with this type of conversation, you like what you hear, you appreciate the learnings, the awareness that we are sharing here, please subscribe to our channel, and most importantly, share it with others. This is how we create a positive change in our community. This is how we are distributing the storytelling, how we are distributing awareness, the knowledge, the wisdom that everyone is looking for. So we are perhaps trying to minimize the noise that it is out there in the social media and really bring this soulful, human-oriented
Absolutely.
conversations to our world. Thank you.